In Spain also, they will kind of yell at you if you put chorizo in it too.
Chorizo is like one of my favorite things to use in cooking.
Today guys, I got a request to review this paella video, so let's see if they do a little better than Joshua Weissman in my last review or not. And if you do like the video guys, then be sure to like the video down below, subscribe, and share with others as it helps the channel out greatly. So let's get started.
Hello, I'm Monica and I'm a level 1 chef.
Hi, I'm Daniel, and I'm a level 2 chef.
I'm Frank. I'm a chef instructor at the Institute of Culinary Education, and I've been cooking professionally for 24 years.
Since Frank is the instructor and he's been cooking for 24 years, that's a decent amount of time, I'm going to hold him to another level than the other two.
I love paella because it's
Oh, I should have pronounced it correctly. Paella, not paella. That's good.
rice on steroids.
Today, I am making a shrimp and chorizo paella. It mixes a little bit of the surf and a little
Outside of Spain, there's like this idea that chorizo goes into paella.
turf and brings it together into this awesome dish.
Finally, today, I get to make paella. Paella is one of those dishes that everyone thinks is extremely difficult, but it really
Paella is a lot harder than you may think. I mean, you can make it easy, but it takes a while to make it.
Today I'm using frozen squid from the supermarket and mussels.
I've got some fresh shrimp and Spanish chorizo. I'm a huge fan of using fresh seafood. Frozen's okay, but it's not the same.
You don't need to do all this cutting and prepping and prawning. You could just get you a bag of squid and keep it moving, girl.
Today I'm making a meat paella. I'm using rabbit and morcilla. Morcilla is super smoky and delicious. Rabbit is lean but has a great flavor.
Rabbit? Like bunny rabbit?
Rabbit is actually really easy to find. I see it in my supermarket all the time.
So what Frank looks like he's making, he's trying to make the paella valenciana, but instead of using what he should be using, which is like chicken and rabbit, he's using morcilla. La morcilla is a butifarra, or it's an impodido in Spanish, butifarra in Catalan. It's a blood sausage, it's a pork blood sausage. It's not that common, well, I shouldn't say it's not that common. It's not something that you can go to, say, Mercadona in the grocery store and buy it, at least in Catalonia. But I wouldn't be putting that in the paella.
Usually it comes frozen.
It's a separate rice dish.
It has the same texture as chicken. So I'm just gonna make a slice. So we have these little pieces that not only easy to eat, but they'll cook a little quicker. I think that if you have any problem with eating a rabbit, just use chicken.
Back home in the US, I know that rabbit's not as common, or at least in the Northwest it's not that common. Here in Spain, rabbit is very common. I can buy a whole rabbit at the grocery store for only a couple euros. The only problem with rabbit is, like he's saying, is that it's extremely lean, so you can overcook that thing super easily because it doesn't have a lot of fat on it.
To get a really good paella, you do not need all these crazy exotic meats. So these are regular mussels that you'll get from the supermarket. You just want to make sure that you clean them because they have like this grit on them and you do not want the grit. And just get in there, you know, put your mussels into your mussels.
The whole seafood paella thing is like a later invention.
It is the most famous, but it's not the, say, traditional, because seafood is obviously a lot harder to get, or it used to be harder to get than normal, say, meat. And while paella used to be a poor man's dish, it was meant to feed the family. So you would make a massive paella, and the pan, by the way, is also called a paella. So you make a massive paella, the dish, and then they would serve this normally on weekends, on Sundays, and people still do this, but it can feed, if you make a big one, it can feed an enormous amount of people.
And for the most part in Spain, you won't find people mixing meat and seafood. In Spain also, they will kind of yell at you if you put chorizo in it too.
Chorizo is like one of my favorite things to use in cooking.
But what the chef's talking about, that paella mixta is not common at all in Spain, no, it is common. I mean, it's not as common as you're gonna see like seafood paella, but they have it. But mixing chorizo with that is a big no-no. Yes, you mix chicken or rabbit with the seafood.
It's cured like salami almost. I think it adds a ton of flavor without adding too much work. I'm basically going to cut my chorizo.
There's different types of chorizo. Yeah, you have Mexican type chorizo, which is different than Spanish chorizo. Now, chorizo here, you can buy cured, you can buy raw, so you can cook it. He's using cured, which, if this was just for another dish, I wouldn't use cured to cook with anyway, because it's too tough. I'd actually use the raw chorizo. And also you can take it out and cut it to shapes or whatever you want to do and make little chorizo meatballs, whatever.
Into thin little circles, little discs, like that.
So my mussels are clean, my squid is defrosted, look at it, and we're ready to go.
Let's work with our morcilla. Morcilla is a blood sausage. It's made with pig's blood, ground pork.
If you're making a seafood paella, it's a good idea to cut the calamari up instead of leaving it in big chunks, because if you cook calamari, if you overcook it, and in a paella you will, it's going to be very tough. So basically it's like putting a rubber band in your mouth.
Meat, some sort of binder like rice or breadcrumbs, and spices, and it's usually smoked. So it's absolutely delicious.
My chorizo is done, and now I'm going to season my shrimp. Just putting some salt and pepper on both sides. I'm just gonna turn all the shrimp over and do.
If you want a delicious butifarra or type of butifarra, here in Catalonia is very common. I didn't like it at first, but fuet is a very common type of sausage that they eat, cured. And then another one, I forget how to pronounce it, it's in Catalan. It's a white type of sausage, but it's absolutely delicious.
So now it's time to get my veggies ready. I'm gonna start with my onion.
I prefer using a sweet onion just because they don't make me cry.
I have a nice white onion here.
The white onion is always the best flavor for me.
Traditionally, people will cut onions, they go kind of.
Now, just looking at the method that they're actually prepping everything, I would strongly suggest to prep the vegetables first, because you have to make what's called the sofrito, or la marca, as we call it in the kitchen. And that will literally take you at least an hour to make ahead of time, if you're gonna make that separately or if you're gonna make it per dish or per paella.
Follow these lines, and then I do this cut. But I always get a little nervous with that because I don't like cutting towards myself. So whenever we're in a restaurant, we want to go as fast as possible. We take the onion, we get the lines, we cut across the lines, not all the way through, go up and over the rainbow. And then the onion will separate along its natural.
That's the first time in my life, in my professional cooking life, that I have seen anyone cut an onion like that.
Garlic.
The only thing I don't love about garlic is getting the peel off.
I'm just gonna take them, give them a little whack with the side of the knife, just to kind of get the skin off.
Just gonna mince this down. So I want this really, really small pieces.
I just kind of rough chop my garlic because the more you process it, the stronger it gets.
Now, if you're gonna add garlic with the paella, and this is mostly for the professional kitchen, not for the households, but we make what's called ajo perejil. It's garlic, parsley, and olive oil that's blended together into a little sauce that we add to the paella first. And I'll explain a little later on as we go.
On to my bell peppers. There's a red pepper and a yellow pepper.
I chose a red bell pepper for this. You want to use a yellow or an orange pepper, that's fine. But I usually stay away from the green ones. I think they're a little too sharp for this dish. You paid good money for that pepper. Don't throw away the tops and the bottom. I just cut them in half. I get my garbage bowl, and then I pull out the seed pod, right? And if there's any ribs in there or any extra seeds, I just tap them out and get rid of them. Now I have a full.
If you're gonna make a sofrito, the common pepper or bell pepper to use is a red bell pepper. They're the sweetest. It doesn't just give the flavor, the sweetness to the dish, it also helps color, because the marca needs to be, or normally it is, reddish in color.
So I'm just gonna process this by cutting it into long strips.
And I think that these add a nice A color and B crunch to the dish.
If you're gonna be using a chef's knife, safety tip, never do this with the chef's knife. You can cut yourself.
I'm gonna dice it from here. One of the vegetables I do want you to see in my finished paella is hot pepper. I'm using Italian long hot peppers in my paella. I'm gonna cut these into rings so you can see them in the finished.
Hot peppers don't go in the traditional paella. Yes, the paella, the dish is not like spicy. And as a matter of fact, there are very few spicy dishes here in Spain itself. It's not like in Mexico, where you have a lot of spice. Here, they use a lot of pimienton, which is paprika, but it's not always the spicy paprika, it's sweet paprika. The only dish that can be really spicy, one of them, there's a couple, but one of them is like Patatas Bravas, which if you would like a delicious Patatas Bravas, I do have a recipe, a video on it, so you can click here if you want to see it.
Dish.
If you have not cooked with jalapeno, I don't know what's wrong with you. This takes everything to another level.
I don't mind if there's a little bit of seeds in there.
I want the seeds in it and everything.
Just looking at the ingredients of what she has, cilantro doesn't go in paella, and lime Tampoco. Doesn't go in paella. If you don't have lemon, then okay, you can maybe substitute, but it has a completely different flavor to it than lemon.
In the paella today, I'm using fava beans, and fava beans are a very seasonal product. In the springtime, you see them in all the restaurants. But this is something you'll see in paellas in Spain as well. Fava beans come in this nice pod, and then you just have to basically break it open. You pull the string out, and then you just pop it open.
If you don't have garrofo, which are lima beans, which are typical for the paella valenciana, it's okay if you have to substitute one or the other. But if you do use fava beans, it's a good idea to also peel the fava bean skin off the beans. It makes a big difference. And you also have to saute them. You have to cook them a little bit or blanch them.
Open, and the beans kind of just pop right out. You can eat them like this. This outside husk has a little bit too much texture for me for the paellas.
I know a lot of people talk crap about cilantro, but I am cilantro's friend. It gives it another flavor, and I want to leave a little bit for garnish.
Now I love cilantro, don't get me wrong, but for my paella, as far as a garnish, parsley is the way to go.
We're gonna blanch our fava beans for a couple of reasons. One of the reasons is that we wanna get this outside shell off. We want to par cook them so that they don't take that long to cook in the paella, and we wanna preserve the color. My water is at a full rolling boil. I'm gonna hit it with a little bit of salt, and then I'm going to dump
He's doing right for the beans. We'll see for the rest of the dish.
my favas in. I'm gonna give these like 2 minutes, 3 minutes. I just want them to kind of cook a little and skins to get loose. All right, I think these are good to go. Into our ice bath, and I let these cool all the way. Now all we really have to do is peel them. What I do is I usually just get my thumbnail.
I'll be very honest, they're an absolute pain in the you-know-what to peel. Peas are worse.
Fava beans are definitely a lot of work, but I find that they're totally worth it.
So now I'm about to get to work on my rice. So I have my water boiling, and I also have my paella in a box. I know, you're like, what?
So you can buy this? I didn't even know this is something you can buy.
It is like heaven in a box. So once the rice is in, you want to stir it up, and then you want to add all your little seafood goodness from this little can. Assorted seafood and vegetables for paella. What? They already did it for me. Nobody's gonna know. And then cayenne pepper. You know, you always want
No cayenne.
the heat because your Spanish man is coming over, remember? The real Spanish guy, not the guy from Williamsburg that pretends that he's, not that guy.
I use arborio rice for my paella. I personally find that it gives like sort of a creamier texture to it.
We don't want a creamy paella. We want each individual rice grain to show. We don't want this to be creamy. So this is bomba rice. It's a short to medium grain rice that has the ability to soak up a lot of liquid, and that's what we want.
The head chef, he got it right. He's using bomba. That's the correct rice that you use for the paella. This is the common rice to use, bomba rice. But if you can't get it or if you don't have it, then you can substitute with arborio.
Okay, so now I'm gonna add my hammy seasoning. It's gonna give it that robust flavoring without the pork. So when you're using box things, you have to make sure that you clean up as soon as possible. Nobody's gonna know unless you leave your stuff out. So now it's time to saute.
Everything starts with olive oil. So I'm just gonna do like a couple tablespoons of olive oil.
Because this is a Spanish dish, they will fry stuff in extra virgin, and I think that kind of stays true to what we're doing.
We used to cook a lot with extra virgin olive oil until the prices went up. Just to give you guys an idea, in December it costs like €1.50 per liter. And now it's more than €7, at least in Catalonia, per liter for extra virgin olive oil. And we make it here. So right now everybody's a little tight with the oil.
Today.
So what I'm gonna start with is my butter. And then just a little bit of oil. Keep it greased up.
And I know that she doesn't know how to make a paella, but you don't add butter to the pan because this isn't French cuisine. I mean, we still cook with butter, we do, but we don't use butter or mantequilla as much as they do in the north, in France and England.
Now it's time to cook my sofrito. The sofrito is the base of my paella. We're gonna add our onions.
I love the way onions smell.
I always season my onions at this point. I just wanna get some of the moisture out, maybe hit it with a little bit of pepper. Always fresh cracked. Don't use that stuff in the jar. It's dead. This is alive. At this point, I'm also gonna add my saffron. Notice that it's not a lot.
He's making what we call sofrito, or marca in the kitchen. Now, this is the base element to the paella and to many other dishes in Spanish cuisine. The whole purpose of this is to cook it down with the peppers and onions and tomato sauce to cook this down, and pimienton or paprika, sweet paprika, not spicy, but to cook it down into a sauce. And the sauce will add a creaminess, add a richness to the paella. It's not going to be like the risotto, but it is going to give the paella a signature color, and it'll add a lot of flavor.
Saffron has a really nice earthy kind of grassiness to it, and it gives a nice kind of base flavor to our paella. It's also very strong and can overpower your dish, so you just need a little pinch. I'm gonna add my bay leaf as well. And you'll see like the oil starts to get kind of nice and yellow. We can add our garlic and our peppers right now too. Just a little more salt, and just let this cook until the veggies start to break down.
Possibly the best part about making paella is that it all comes down to one pan. So for this, I have a heavy bottom stainless steel pan. Everything goes in this, which makes for easy cooking and easy cleanup.
This is a traditional paella pan. It's not super heavy.
And what he's using, if you don't have the paella dish, because it's a specific pan just to use for making this, you can use another saute pan. It doesn't have to be super deep, but having a little bit of a thicker bottom, I prefer, because that way it doesn't burn as easily instead of having a thin bottom pan. And even my paella pans are thick bottomed, so I can use them on the induction burner if I need to.
Part of the reason for that is because people would carry this on their packs, they bring it out to the field with them. But this pan is gonna give you the best result.
The goal here is to have this crunchy, crispy socarat on the bottom.
Of course, soca somebody's. You know what I'm talking about. It's gonna be like fluffy and nice on the top.
Socarat. Yeah, this is what you want to try to get on the paella, but if you do get it, it's best to get it perfect than to brown it too much to where you burn it.
The real gauge of what a good paella is that you have that nice crispy bottom.
Yeah,
Wish me
that's
luck
true.
as
Yeah. Here, the people will literally flip the paella. People do this for fun, you know, when cooking for the family. And with the big paella pans. I don't mean with the little one for 2 people. I mean the big one, enough for 8 people. They will flip them. It doesn't always go well. Sometimes, just, I don't know what people think sometimes, but sometimes they don't think. And, well, all the paella goes on the floor.
First thing in the pan is our rabbit. We're gonna let that sizzle away. We wanna get it a little bit brown.
A lot of the fat is also gonna like seep out of these things as they cook.
It's the flavor base that I'm talking about.
So that everything else that gets added to the pan after just soaks up all this like fatty, delicious, smoky flavor. I grew up in a Spanish and Hispanic household, so everything that my mom cooked for me in the kitchen started with onion.
So I would assume that he knows, and if he grew up in a Spanish household, not a Hispanic, but the Spanish household, that he knows that chorizo is a big no-no that you don't put in the paella. You can do what you want at home, but he's doing this for TV, you know. Thousands of people are going to watch, and Spaniards are going to watch this. It's like, if you want some hate mail, this is a perfect way of getting it. So.
Add my spices, cayenne.
Cayenne always just does the trick. It just gives everything the extra oomph.
I've got oregano, and last is smoked paprika.
So the rabbit is done. I'm gonna add just a little more oil to my pan, and then I'm gonna put my morcilla in.
If you look at his pan right now, it's already burnt. That's a big no-no, because if you burn the pan, yeah, you will make everything taste like that. That is the strongest flavor in the pan, is the burnt flavor. The best way to do this is to take the paella pan off and either get a new one or clean it and then start over again.
And I wanna just get this lightly brown.
Here's my cherry tomatoes. Look at my babies. You want to take these mussels, and we're just going to stir this up. This is last, but definitely not least. But you don't want to overcook these, right? So remember I said PEMDAS, orders of operation.
I'm gonna add my peppers, and I'm just...
If you're making not just a paella, but even a risotto, the thing that you want to do is you always want to add a hot stock to the dish. Why? Because if you add a cold stock or cold liquid to it, it's going to drop the temperature and it will increase the cooking time.
Just gonna just get these lightly cooked, and then we're gonna add our rice. So I kind of toast the rice or parch the rice a little here.
Rice is toasty.
I like to dry it out a little because it usually gives you a little more soaking up power.
It's looking a little crispy on the bottom. My heart is fluttering right now with the possibility of getting a nice crispy socarat bottom.
Rice is cooked perfectly. It has this beautiful yellow coloring.
The order of operation to make it, and I'm going to give you the professional operation, not the stuff at home. If you have the marca de sofrito pre-made, You're gonna add the ajo perejil, the oil, to the pan. Then you're going to add the calamari. You're gonna fry the calamari a little bit. Then we're going to add the marca de sofrito, tablespoon or 2 tablespoons or more. And then you fry that for about a minute or 2. Once it reduces, then you're going to add the rice. You fry the rice, you heat the rice up. You're gonna add hot stock. You don't wanna add it cold. Give it a good shake. And the moment that you start seeing the rice absorb the stock, this is the moment that you will add, say, a little more stock to it if it needs more. You give it a good hard shake for the last time, because you want the rice to lay flat. If it doesn't lay flat, then it's gonna cook unevenly. And then you can decorate it with the mussels and clams all the way around. The shrimp, I cook separately because it's very easy to overcook shrimp. And either you finish it on the fire or you finish it in the oven. And at this point, it's only gonna cook for about 12 to 15 minutes, more or less, depending on how thick you make it.
Now I'm going to add my can of diced tomatoes, my bell pepper,
and then we're gonna add our stock. If our stock or broth isn't seasoned well, our paella is not gonna have a lot of flavor to it. It's gonna be kind of bland. So I'm gonna add some salt and pepper.
All my ingredients are in the pan. So I'm gonna throw this medium-low heat. I'm gonna cover it.
Don't cover it, just allow the water to evaporate, okay?
Once this comes to a simmer and everything's placed where it needs to place, stop stirring. If you stir at this point, you're not gonna get that really nice brown bottom. Leave it alone. So the paella's been on for about 20 minutes now, and you can see a lot of the stock has been absorbed. In that time, I was watching and monitoring. I added a little more stock if I needed it, because I want the rice on top to be cooked and not be chewy.
Ooh, smells good. I'm not gonna stir it because I don't want to disrupt the bottom. So I'm just going to take the shrimp and put them around the top. That doesn't look half bad, right? Cover goes back on to allow the shrimp to cook.
Hi, beautiful. How are you? You look amazing.
At this point, I want to add my peeled fava beans and just gonna sprinkle them over the top so they get warm. I'm gonna put a little more of this finishing oil on top. So I wanna make sure that I get that nice soakerot. So I'm gonna turn the heat up and I'm gonna listen. You okay? How you doing? Okay, good. And once it starts to get that kind of like slightly burnt smell, I'm gonna take it off.
You don't want a slightly burnt smell. If it has a slightly burnt smell, it's burnt.
And finally, a nice light sprinkling of finishing salt.
And we're done. Now we get to eat it.
And this is my paella.
And this is my paella.
And this is my paella. The moment of truth, we're gonna see if I got the soakerot.
I'm really hoping that there's a crispy bottom on this. I guess we're about to find out.
My rice is looking beautiful. Look at her. She's the prom queen. Wait a minute. I got it, okay?
There is a little bit of a crispiness on the bottom there. Maybe not as crispy as I would have liked. I probably could have done like another minute.
Oh, there's some crispiness. Look at that.
If you look at that, that's not the Butifarra. He burned it.
Crispy bottom. I did it. So I guess it's time to taste.
Let's see.
Girl, you would slap your umbrella. I mean, you probably not because your uncles probably kill you, but you would want to slap her. It's perfect. This is perfect.
This is good. The flavors are all great. The rice cooked perfectly. You get the seafood, so there's like a lot of shrimp flavor, but also the spiciness and smokiness of the chorizo. They sort of marry together in this perfect little blend. I'm very happy with this, and I'm excited to try it again next time.
I couldn't be any happier. A little bit of spiciness from the peppers. Rabbit's not overcooked and dry, and the rice is on the money. There's lots of different layers of flavor here, and saffron's just one of those layers. Absolutely delicious. It takes a little time to get down to perfection, right? I'm gonna pat myself on the back for that one.
Let me know, guys, in the comments down below what you think of their paellas. And if you would like me to review any other videos, then let me know in the comments down below and I will be happy to do so. If you did like, be sure to hit that like button, share and subscribe. And if you do want an authentic recipe, an authentic way of making paella, then I would suggest you click on this video here and I will walk you through it step by step. Take care.